First, give yourself permission. Permission. You can't control everything, and you don't have to color in the lines all the time to make a beautiful picture. Welcome back to episode number 2 of Overwhelmed to Resilient. I'm Dr. Phyllis Hayes Reams, your host. I am so grateful for you coming back and joining me. In today's episode, I want to share with you this question. What if you allow yourselves to color outside the lines? For some, maybe what? But let's think about it. For most of us, when we were starting out in our education, we were learning how to color within the lines. We went from the big crayons as little kids, right? Preschoolers, so that because our hands could only manage like the bigger crayon to the smaller crayon, right? The more narrow crayons. And we thought we really had arrived once we could, stop using the big fat crayons and use the smaller crayons. But we were judged on our ability to color within the lines. And even now, which is nothing wrong with it, we're in our lives, right? We are expected to follow the rules, to live our life within the lines. And if we don't live our lives within the lines, we're looked at as different, we're looked at as disruptors, and that seems to have a negative label. Yet I have to say in my own life, some of the greatest joy that's come to me in the last years has been coloring outside the lines. And when I really think of it, a lot of the internal struggles and challenges that I've had to overcome is that inner battle between wanting to color outside the lines and being and feeling that if I didn't continue to color within the lines, that I wouldn't reach my achievements, I wouldn't be liked, I wouldn't fit in, I wouldn't have a seat at the table, in the C-suite, all of those things. But I'm here to tell you that we have to embrace ourselves. One of the very critical parts of going from being overwhelmed by life, overwhelmed by the life events, overwhelmed by the lemons that come at us in life, is finding that comfort and being able to go with the flow. That was one of the hardest things for me is, again, I had to confront the fact that underneath it all, I the way I coped with disappointment and frustration was trying to have more control in life, trying to control my surroundings. And often, that meant overeating or um overcommitting. Like if I just do this and if I show what I can do, then because only I could do it, right? I'll do it because only I could do it. And I didn't feel that other people could do it. So only I could do it. All of that is trying to control things. It's trying to not even trying. I don't think we try. I think it just becomes a part of our narrative if we're not careful, if we don't really call it out. And we wonder why we're so disappointed when things just don't work out the way we planned it. But I can tell you that life To really find joy and peace in life, we have to be able, you have to be able to find the joy even in the midst of the storm. Now, I'm not saying that when you don't feel well or when you are dealing with bad things like the loss of someone or your own medical problem, right? I'm not saying you're supposed to be party and saying, "Oh, this has happened." I'm not saying that. There does come a point in time in that process as one who's living with chronic medical conditions is you do find some joy in the midst of that storm. But for this discussion, I'm talking about when a relationship hits you, or maybe things on the job don't work the way you thought they were going to work out, or the workplace is toxic, a place where maybe you thought at one time, actually not thought, you really were having great experiences. It was joy, it was peace. You 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 look forward to going to work. And maybe just things have changed. Leadership has changed, the atmosphere has changed, the environment has changed, the climate that your profession is within is changed. So you don't have the same joy and peace at work. Maybe the same is said for your home life. And because your narrative is that one of control, you're overwhelmed because you have lived your life within the boundaries, the security of feeling like you knew the answers, you knew what you had planned everything out, you knew what was coming next. And anything that didn't fit within those lines, you didn't want to have anything to deal with. But now you've hit something, you've hit a snag that you can't control. Now what? And that's why I feel it's so important to now work on giving yourself permission to color outside the lines, to go with the flow, to be able to not beat yourself up when something didn't work out exactly the way you expected it to. So the first thing is to deal with in dealing with situations that are out of your control is to step back and give yourself permission. Just give yourself permission that I'm not in control of this. I'm not in control of this. That's first. Give yourself permission. And number 2 is everybody else doesn't color within the lines. Life is not a bunch of lines. There's a whole bunch of dashes in the midst of that too, and you just can't control everything. You just can't. But what you can do is once you step back, once you give yourself permission, and actually step 2 is acknowledgement. So step 1 is the permission and step 2 is acknowledgement that there just may be a different way of coloring. It just may be a different approach. Because if you think about it, and I know I'm using this analogy of the coloring, but I think it resonates with most of us, is that you can give one person a picture, right? A coloring book, a picture. And I may decide because I love my yellows and my blues that I'm going to color that's the color I'm choosing. The yellow and blue, that's the way I see it. And someone else at that same coloring table may decide, I want the red and the green. Now, does it make it wrong because they want theirs red and green and you want yours blue and yellow? Now, we all know back in the day, if not now, we would kind of scrutinize someone else if they didn't choose the same color that we chose. You're like, the sky's supposed to be blue. Why are you color? And then we also know we've dealt with some teachers like that, right? The sky's supposed to be blue. The grass is supposed to be green. The house is supposed to be brown, whatever it is. But then you realize that everybody doesn't see the world the same way. They don't. They don't. And as long as the way that they decide to approach life, the way that they decide to choose their colors, as long as it's not hurting people, as long as it's not detrimental to society, it's not detrimental to God's word, it's not detrimental to the welfare of others, then it's okay. And it's also okay to say that they're nice, but they just don't fit. We're just not connected. It's okay. So maybe I'm just connected more with those people who choose yellow and blue to color their picture. Now, that doesn't mean that we all can't sit at the table and be who we are, but it's okay. I know I'm unpacking a whole lot in here. And it's so funny. I have to be totally honest. I had recorded this podcast a couple weeks ago. And it's interesting that I was informed that the audio had not come through on this episode. And the old Phyllis would have been, oh my God, I used all that time. But you know what? Nothing is wasted. Because I'm going to tell you, the Phyllis today that's recording this episode is not even the same Phyllis who recorded this same episode a couple weeks ago. Because God is continually revealing to me just new depths of joy and peace. And that's why I'm here, because I want you to continue to get to that same place. Because I'm also learning to color outside the lines. And that's why I'm really encouraging you to first give yourself permission. Permission. You can't control everything, and you don't have to color in the lines all the time to make a beautiful picture. And number 2 is to acknowledge that your patterns of coloring, your patterns of living your life can change as you grow, and that's okay. That's okay. And then thirdly is, again, you're giving yourself permission, acknowledging that you're not in control and that it's okay. And number 3 is to take a moment and step back and just pray to God to give you the strength to let Him help you color in the way that He wants you to color, not just a picture, but your life. You are important Um, I know. That's why I'm so excited about sharing with you all because I know how it is to have life living you instead of you living your life. I know how it is to be caught within those lines of those rigid, those narratives that you've come to know as your truth, but you're not happy. You're not growing. You're not really growing. On the outside, it may look like you're growing, but inside you're not. And you feel like life is slipping by because you're just like living, you're just on autopilot, but you're not in touch with the experiences. So after you give yourself permission to look at things a different way, and then you acknowledge, not in control of everything, then you can pray and be still. Like Psalm 46:10, be still and know that he's God. And I am telling you, your eyes will open up, your ears will open up, and you will begin experiencing life in a way that you probably always dreamed of, right? You always dreamed of, yet it's been so elusive that you have hidden yourself in your job or in your stress eating or other things that we overdo to try to cope. But I'm going to tell you, if you give yourself permission, if you acknowledge that you're not in control, and then you pray on it and you get quiet, that so many doors are going to open up in your mind and your heart that are going to be unbelievable, just unbelievable. And I look so forward to hearing the great things that God is doing in your life. And the fourth thing is, and you'll hear me talk about this, is getting in with a supportive community. Doesn't take many. The Bible says we're two or more gathered in my name, but sometimes, I wouldn't even say sometimes, often, when we are disrupting our narratives, when we are disrupting how we've been doing things, and we are on the verge of evolving to the next level, we have to find our support system because you may have that ride or die support system that they're good regardless of what you're going through. But you're going to have some that you're going to need to leave behind, because not leave behind. I shouldn't say that. Now, there are some you need to leave behind, but there's going to be some that you just need to kind of like, they have their place, but you need to create or find a new little tribe, a new little group of support who gets you where you're going and what you're in the middle of. And again, I look forward to hearing all the great things that God has in store for you. And I look forward to sharing with you more on your journey as I continue on my journey to help others like you and me who have dealt with the feelings of overwhelm, and I look forward to helping you go from being overwhelmed to resilient. So give yourself permission, acknowledge you don't have control, pray and be still. Fourth, find your tribe so you too can learn to color outside the lines. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Thanks again for joining. Bye bye now.